Hello, everyone. How are we all doing? Come on in, sit on down. It's a live Q&A. It's Wednesday evening. I'm back on track, just about. I'm running a little bit late because, as people who have been following recently, a reoccurring problem is happening in the Stobbs household. And yes, my son is still going through a teething process and just woke up screaming about, I don't know, 25 minutes ago, give or take, and I managed to rock him back to sleep, and he seems to be out now. So I'm here a few minutes late, not too bad, quarter past the hour. That's relatively early for me, usually. Everyone knows I like to be fashionably late, but I'm here now. We've made it. We're back on track. I haven't had to delay the episode. And yeah, it's been a good week. It's been an interesting week. I chucked out a few clips from some of my previous live shows over the past couple of weeks, and they seem to have just skyrocketed and gone viral. I don't know what I did, but I touched some kind of zeitgeist nerve of some kind, and it turns out talking about the music industry really got people hyped up and kind of reminding them of the contract with the devil that needs to be signed to be famous in this world. And that seemed to really resonate quite a lot and spread quite far, and the YouTube algorithm gods seem to have bestowed me with a bone, shall we say. They chucked me a bone. That's probably a good way to describe it. And I think I can hear myself in my pocket. Let me just quickly check. I can hear myself in my pocket. Let me just turn that off, because that is a jarring experience. A rookie mistake. You don't normally have to play yourself in the background when going live. But there we go. Yeah, so the numbers seem to have skyrocketed on the channel, and I've gained quite a lot of new subscribers, about 2,000 just in the past month alone, about 2,500. And the most of those have come in the past 2 weeks. So I feel like it might be a good idea for me, while I've got you here in the middle of the week, to kind of dive into what I'm known for, so people can kind of get an idea of who I am and what it is I do and why I even talk about these things. And primarily, I'm the author of the book, The Nephilim Looked Like Clowns. I'm the original creator of the series, which I started in 2016. You can watch that on my channel. The full playlist is there. And it dates back that far, almost 9 years now. And it's kind of developed and grown over that time to be like a holistic theory, which has developed to get into this book. And the book is a scholarly work. It's got references galore. I think 386 references in the first volume alone, and I'm currently writing the second volume to kind of flesh out this insane sounding idea, because trust me, I know what it sounds like. That the Nephilim, the spirits, today we call demons, the disembodied spirits of what used to be giants that walked on the earth in an ancient time, according to the biblical history narrative, which were hybrids between angel and human. And I postulate and hypothesize and hope to prove that when you mix a fiery flying seraphim serpent angel with a human, you get something that looks akin to a big, wide, grinning, bulging-eyed, fiery red-haired, pale white skin, multicolored patterned all over the body, clown-looking monster. And what I do primarily is an anthropological study more than anything, and I, as well as bringing the receipts and the history of where the clown costume came from, which is quite literally modelled after the demons of India, the Rakshasa specifically, and going further back into where we get Harlequin from the Commedia dell'arte movement that came out of Rome from the Middle Ages for 1,000 years as a kind of a process of developing stock characters. And the Wild Man of Europe was developed into Harlequin, which became the foil of the clown, both modelled after European and Indian demons. So historically speaking, I kind of prove that clowns have always been a representation of a demon. But then if you go and look at cultures all around the earth, which we're going to do today in this little presentation, you'll find that there are folk traditions which are quite ancient, that go very far back, some newer than others, but if you look at them, they always seem to involve dressing like demons. It's a very similar motif, and usually it's about a battle between good and evil being enacted by the village or the tribe of some kind, a way of warding off bad energies or bad spirits by dressing like them in an apotropaic sense. That's what that means. And then in other cases, they dress like them to channel them in order to get stuff from them and make contracts and deals with demons. And my channel, about understanding conspiracy, kind of delves a lot into the spiritual warfare aspect of things and just how the mechanics of the spiritual realm and demons interacting with humans works. And I think my study and my work kind of gives a big insight into that world, and perhaps the ignorance some tribes have when dealing with these things, and in many cases, the absolute knowledge and understanding that we are making deals with demons when we do this. It goes both ways with varying aesthetical differences. So my work kind of examines these cultures, and you find the costumes they wear in order to channel spirits, which I contend are the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim, are clown-like, very clownish in nature. And it all kind of harkens back to this overarching theorem and point that the Nephilim did indeed look like clowns. And like I said, I'm working on volume 2, and what I'm going to kind of share with you today is what I've been working on over the past week. I've been writing a section on South America, and I've only just kind of dived into the South American continent after spending a couple of months fleshing out the North American continent and all the tribes in those regions and the way they channel their spirits and the many reasons why they do it and the differences between different tribes and the what would you call it, kind of the intentions of each tribe. We go into sacred clowning as well, and we kind of go into rock art and depictions of things within there which have clownish features, jester-like features too. And it took a while to explore the northern continents, but I've just moved into the southern continent after going through the Aztec and Maya culture, working my way through that, through Ecuador and down. And I've kind of gone into the Inca culture just over the past 2 weeks. And kind of going into this and just kind of having a brushed overview, I find that in the modern day, there's a lot of festivals that go on around this region, which kind of harken back to their understanding of a demon, which, again, we will get into. So that's what's coming in it soon, and I'll kind of show you some images and some work, and you've obviously seen the thumbnail, which kind of gives away this idea a bit more and the type of visages we're talking about here and how this links back to my work. So again, I think this is a good episode just as like an introductory idea or concept to the thousands of hours of video footage and images I've collected over the years and works and writings based on this theorem, if you haven't heard of it before. And I think all of this completely corroborates and backs up the biblical narrative, especially that found in the Book of Enoch, which is why I want to do this, because fundamentally I want to try and bring my audience to Christ. That's always the first and foremost meaning behind my work. And this is just one of many ideas discussed on this channel. And I think it could be a good idea today to just kind of go into it again. As like a refresher for maybe the old school people who have been with me for like over 9 years doing this. And again, for those new people who have just turned up and are wondering, what the hell is this? What is this guy talking about, So there we go. But coming back, let's just check the chat quickly, see who we've got. We've got Jeff Nugent in the house. Good to see you. We've got Wendy, the moderator galore. Thanks for being here, Wendy, as usual. We got Anna Banana Republic. Thanks for being here. Thanks for all the comments you've left recently. I have been noticing them and seeing them, and I appreciate the support. We've got Peter Hamlet's in the house. We got Balaam's Llama. Interesting name. We've got Danny L. We've got Amelia. Great to see you. We've got all the usual faces in here as well. We've got MK Ryan, like he showed up for a little bit too. Has he already dipped out? I'm sure he's dipped out already, but that's fine. It's nice for him just to turn up for a little bit. Paul wrote the tune. I think he definitely played. Yeah, the opening tune that you heard, that was me. I made that in university about 14 years ago. I was collaborating with another of my peers in my art class who had a little setup, and I did the keyboard and the piano, and we merged it all together, and we came up with what you heard there. Yes, that's an original piece by yours truly right there. I only try and use my own music for that kind of stuff on this channel and my other channel, Understanding Creativity. But this halfway through the show, I'm going to be playing a song by Connor from the Cult of Con. He's graciously allowed me to play one of his songs for the halftime break. We'll take a break from the usual, because I know Danny L there wasn't too happy with listening to the same song every week, and that's fair enough. But yeah, I'm going to use one of Connor's songs instead this week for fun. Susie Marima says she likes the song for Understanding Creativity. Well, thank you. That's me too. That's my little piano solo there that I created again in unis, where I recorded that on a studio grand. It was very fun. And I've kind of kept that with me over the years. Had nothing to do with it until this channel turned up, and I thought I could use this, So I kind of have taken segments of the 10-minute piece and I've created a little intro, outro music from it, which you can hear on Understanding Creativity. But I'm glad you enjoyed that one. The full song is available on that channel as well. If you go to original artwork, you can just listen to the whole thing. It's called A Walk in the Rain, because I'm just that pretentious. So there we go. I'm glad you guys enjoy the music. Hi, new to the channel as a sub, really enjoying your clown series. Are the Boo Boo dolls connected to the demons from the Nephilim? Says Shellac Lemons. Yes, I did make a video about that very recently, which again went viral. So I think it's on about 20,000 views now or something like that. And I believe, and this harkens back to a lot of my work, it's a representation of the wild man of Europe. And people have come up with all sorts of rebuttals to say why that's ridiculously wrong. But I think I make a solid case for where it comes. It's from European folklore specifically. It was a Chinese artist who kind of borrowed from European folklore to make that. But it's kind of a hybridized mashup between the wild man of Europe, which are Bigfoot analog in some respects, hybridized humans who merge themselves with animals, hence Labubu having bunny ears and the fur of an animal as well. And with the big wide grin, the sharp teeth and everything, I would say it is likely a nymph or perhaps a fairy folk analog, but primarily I would say Wild Man of Europe. And the Wild Man of Europe is the inspiration for Harlequin from the Commedia dell'arte, as I explained earlier, which was the first proto-clown before clown was invented in about in the early 1700s, late 1600s. And then dressed as we see a clown today in 1799, modeled after the Rakshasa demons of India. So there is kind of a historical trail from wild man to harlequin to clown, if you get what I mean, that you can follow the timeline of history. So fundamentally, I would say the Boo Boo inspiration is with a lot of artistic license taken by the Chinese artist himself, obviously, harkens back to the wild man of Europe image. That's what I believe, yeah. Which is a Nephilim, a giant, man-eating, club-wielding giant of Europe. Question, do you think that all Nephilim look like clowns, or do you think there are other types that looked like animals, mostly, or some other type? I'd be interested in your thoughts. I think primarily the original Nephilim, the OG ones, did look like a serpent-human hybrid, which naturally creates clownish features when you start looking at the examples, which I can go through today. I'm going to go through all my catalog of images to show you the artistic representations we have of these things all throughout ancient cultures everywhere. Not AI stuff. This is like rock carvings, ancient manuscripts, masks worn in rituals and costumes worn during rituals and all these type of things that represent them. And you'll see there's a common thread throughout all of it. The aesthetics will start to repeat themselves because you'll realize they're all dressing like the same things. And these are the ones where the clown gets its inspiration, I would say. But I do think there were other creatures that were around other than the Nephilim. I think there was the offspring of the Nephilim, the Nephil. Then there was the grandchildren of the Nephilim going down generations, which got smaller and more humanized in their looks as time went on. More variations, genetics started to come into play. And I think, yeah, we started getting some really creepy looking things that perhaps didn't look like clowns, but looked like something else. But I do think there was a time where humans also manipulated their own DNA. It's discussed as the mixing of kinds in the Book of Jasher. And in the Book of Jasher, it kind of explains how just in the lead up before the flood, about a 250-year period roughly before the flood came, the OG Nephilim were dead. And they were killed and wiped out as a punishment for the angels who made them. They had to watch their children kill each other, the Nephilim kill each other. I still think the children's children, the grandchildren, the Nephil, the Elio, and the Eliud were kind of still around, which were the descendants of the original Nephilim. And I think they taught mankind how to genetically engineer themselves. And then the mixing of kinds happened. So you got animals mixed with animals, humans mixed with animals, and loads of chimerid hybrids started to appear. And I think these in their own right could be counted as like a subclass of demon today. And there's something to be said for the idea that maybe when they died, their spirits were stuck on Earth just like the Nephilim, therefore became a part of the demonic horde, in a sense. So there is variation, definitely. And I guess I am talking about a very specific class of demon, those which are the disembodied spirits of half angel, half human. Not diluted, quarter angel, 3/4 human over generational dilution, the original ones. I'd say they would look more like clowns than anything. I hope that answers your question there. There's a lot of nuance to this theory. There's a lot of things to, the title does not explain it clearly. I know that. It's a hook to get you intrigued, but when you actually get into it, this goes deep, very deep, way deeper than I initially thought it would when I started uncovering this stuff. So there we go. What exactly is a Nephilim, says Gucci Dan. Like I said, the Nephilim are historically understood to be tyrannical giants of an ancient pre-flood world. They are the offspring of angels who descended from heaven and mixed themselves with human women. So that's quintessentially a Nephilim creature there. Spiritual warfare, Jesus said, "It is not possible for anyone to enter the house of a strong man and take it by force unless he binds his hands. Then he'll be able to ransack his house." Thomas 35. Okay, Dean Johnson, thanks for sharing that. And those chimeras made maybe what we call cryptids today, says Outtuition. Yes, that's my theory. I think things like Spider-Man, is a good example. I think, you get these superheroes in movies as well. I think they're hearkening back to the chimerid hybrid humans. Batman, Spider-Man, Wolverine, this type of stuff. They are X-Men, mutants. They used to be men. They are X-Men, no longer men anymore. They've crossed themselves out from the Book of Life, I assume, by taking that corruption to the soul and body. So I think today's modern cryptid phenomena, Mothman, that kind of stuff, werewolves, there's many cryptids and hybrid weird-looking creatures all over the place, all over the earth. And you get a map out of like cryptid sightings with pictures of what the cryptids look like all over the earth. They're everywhere. These creatures that are quite like human-animal hybrids. I think they're a product of what happened with the mixing of kinds. Same for mermaids, centaurs, that, you know what I mean? Half man, half bull, half man, half horse, harpies, half bird, half woman, that type of thing. And I've listed many stories as well in like my own book of like cultural myths surrounding these creatures, and you can see that really when you contextualize it through the book of Jasher explaining this mixing of kinds, it makes sense very quickly where these things actually came from. And there's a lot of like mythologization of the situation. There's a lot of like stories from certain regions which have like mystified them, but when you actually get down to brass tacks, they were likely just lying to people about where they came from, and we can actually know logistically how they were created and why they were created through the biblical narrative. So I think that context is something people need to hear that they don't hear enough of, and my work in a way kind of can help contextualize biblical history in a way I don't think most people understand biblical history to actually be. And in a way, look, the Bible's great, and you don't need me to make it better. It's good enough as it stands. But I think there's a disconnect with the modern generation. I feel like they struggle to connect to the Bible and the historical narrative. And I feel like modern churches and Sunday schools really dull it down and make it boring for people to a point where they don't even want to know. And it's a shame that that's what they're doing, because when you actually examine the books that we have, and let's go to the 88 book canon, rather than just the 66 that we have. But I think if you really get into the whole story and the bigger picture, you realize it's actually the greatest story on earth. It's incredible, and it's very profound, very deep, very, very, it's epic, and I think we can get people excited about biblical history, and in a way that's what the Nephilim Look Like Clowns is trying to do. And I think it's working. I've got some good reviews. People are telling me it's working, so I'm quite happy. Look into the gathering of the Juggalos, please. God bless you, Paul. Yeah, I know all about the Juggalos. I'm working on something, but you've got to be delicate when dealing with like large scale cults like that. If you're going to completely and totally lambast their entire culture, and I'm not looking to do that or to degrade anybody. I think many people are just deceived about what's going on with the visage of a clown, But I know all about the Juggalo situation, absolutely. And I know all about Richie the Barber as well, before you bring him up. I know all about it. Question, is there anyone doing further research on hagiographies that you know of? Thanks, says Susan Marima. In relation to that, which has nothing to do with this podcast today, my Telegram group has a hagiography subsection. You can go and check it out. People are always contributing in there, whatever they find. So that's all I'm aware of. But I personally haven't done any more into it. Didn't some of the giants have long necks? Do you believe some Nephilim had blue or red skin? Yes, Matron Ravel, there's many variations of a snake. I'll say that much. Look at the snake kingdom out there, the genus of a snake. There's many colourful and nuanced differences between snakes. Some have rattles tails, some don't. Some have frills, some don't. Some have black and white checkered underbelly, some don't. Some have multicolored skin. Some are brown, some are red. There's a snake is a snake is a snake, but there's definitely variation in color between species, and I think that was the same for the Nephilim too. Yeah. Sorry, guys. Thanks for answering your questions, says She Like Lemons. Oh, you're welcome. No problem. So what I'm here for. It's a Q&A after all. And like I said, I'll get my little presentation going soon. We're 20 minutes in, so I probably should start it now. So by the time I finish, we're at a good round point for the halfway mark to have a bit of a break and come back and actually get into these questions, if that's all right. Wendy's holding comments back. What did I miss? I must have missed something. I don't know what's going on. She said it was hilarious, though. As for Alex Beaton, who asked that question about September the 7th, and there's really nothing I can say about that. I'm not allowed. Last time I discussed that, when the last test happened, I got a strike instantly for even just daring to bring up the subject. So I can't actually talk about it. I'm sorry. And maybe I'll make a patron only. That episode is actually on Patreon only if you want to go listen to what I said about it last time. Because I can't put it anywhere else. But yeah, I understand what you're saying. But I will say, and what I said then is, nothing's going to happen. Don't worry about it. It's much hype about nothing. I swear down. Is it possible that unicorns are righteous? Maybe. I don't know about that. I'm sure there are many extinct animals today that God created originally that have just been removed from creation, perhaps because of the corruption. Maybe. I couldn't tell you. Some great questions in the comments tonight, says Mark. But yeah, it's because you get new people joining in, and they're curious and want to know, and it's good to have that. That's why I thought this Q&A would be good to kind of go back to the channel's basics tonight. We got Trish Clark in the house. My wife says she'll never be excited about any history ever. Yeah, she's not into it. Why would they be half serpents, though? Does that mean angels are full serpents? No, I contend that specifically the angels, which were the Watchers, the 200 angels that descended to Mount Hermon, the ones that were originally classed with watching over humanity as like servants before corrupting themselves and taking wives of the people they were supposed to be looking after. I think they were the seraphim specifically. I think they were the closest to God. The seraphim are the only ones who can get close to God on his throne because they can protect themselves with their 6 wings and get close enough to his glory without burning up. And they're the ones who sing holy, holy, holy around his thrones, if you look at the descriptions of this. And I think that the God's closest angelic confidants were the ones that were sent down to earth to watch over his creation, specifically the humans, the people, the men, the man he made, the men, women he made. And I think if you look at history, you'll find that dragons are everywhere and are often synonymous on each continent with being the creator or the gods of the old world, or the ones that helped humanity from a cruel, evil, vindictive god in some way. If you look at like the Jade Emperor, for example, of China, and the 4 dragons who brought water to the people because the cruel god just wanted to let them suffer. It's that kind of thing. You find this in these inversion stories where dragons are always involved and shown as the heroes, and they were godlike shapeshifters as well. They weren't just the dragons with their just main form. And I think those were the ones specifically that mixed with human women. I think they were the ones that were given a task and failed. And it's a testimony to that even those closest to God rebelled, and it's kind of like just like us, just like humanity. And we were in the garden walking with God, and we thought it could get better. We thought we knew better, and it's the same for those specific angels. And I think if you look at the biblical narrative, I kind of explained it all in the book. I think those were the ones that primarily mated with human women. There could be something to be said. Maybe they're like insectoid type angels as well, or maybe kind of like fish-like angels in some way. You get sea serpents is a common one as well. Typhon, for example, from the Greek mythology. He was a sea dragon, a sea serpent, and his job was to watch over a specific region of the ocean. and he controlled storms as well. And I think angels were given tasks over the earth. I think they were told to stay in specific points of the earth and make it function, and they were a part of the functionality. They were the rain and the storms, and they were like code in the machine that God created. Every angel, I think, is a piece of code God created to have a function in the creation itself. So when a third of the angels rebelled and fell from heaven, the creation broke. It's like removing a bunch of cogs from a very complicated watch, and I think we don't understand just how psychedelic the rebellion of the angels truly was and the impact it had on creation and everything. Why we have such a need for a new creation at the end of time, and the new heaven and earth, because this one is utterly corrupt. And I think the seraphim played a huge role and were the ones that mixed themselves with humans, creating this human serpent hybrids, which are the Nephilim specifically. And I think that's where they get the clown-like features from: the wide smile, the big eyes, the large elongated features, necks and foreheads and high cheekbones and the rest of it, and the crazy patterned skin, which is synonymous with clown clothing, That's my own personal theory, and I think there's a lot of historical precedents for that outside of the Bible as well as within the Bible. If you look at all the cultures, it confirms dragons came down and mixed with human women. Even in Australia, the rainbow serpents carved and created the earth and the mountains, and it was through them having communion with the earth, which is, again, just a very clever way of saying coming down and having sex with human women. The serpents merged with the earth and created the Wanginas, which are serpent-human hybrids. If you look at them, if you've ever seen them, and they look just like clowns: white face, polka dot pattern skin, pom-poms that look like pom-poms down the chest, a huge red afro, everything, Even have a little neck frills like you see clowns wearing. I'm not even joking. I'll show you this as we go on today. But that, again, serpents mixing with the earth to create hybrids. It's always the same story everywhere, pretty much. Very little variation between them, to be honest. So that's why I think serpent, personally, Danielle. That's my explanation there. Right, so with that being said, let's get on this. Let's show it. So if you're new and I've managed to get you and you're hooked and you're interested, let me show you just kind of what I've been working on. So first of all, I'll just get the book so you can get a bit of a sneak peek of behind the scenes of Volume 2. And I'll just quickly share the screen with you guys. So this is the book. This is Volume 2. This is what I've been doing right now. And I'll just zoom in a bit so you can get a better view. So there we go. Right, so this is Volume 2 of the book. This is what I've been doing. And I've been working on Section 3. So the first book is actually Sections 1 and 2. And then I'm into the clown aesthetics in folk traditions and artworks. And again, North American traditions, I've kind of gone through this and it's turned into like a 20,000 word like thesis in its own right, just going through all these subheadings of North America and the Mesoamerican gods, where we kind of ended that one. And then I've moved on to Chapter 21, South American folk traditions and the Incan Empire. So I've kind of opened up briefly explaining the Incan Empire and getting into this. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to give you a reading of something I just wrote. I just finished writing this little paragraph over a couple of hours, well, 2 sessions, it took like a couple of hours each when I can squeeze them in. And really this comes off the back of summarizing the Mesoamerican cultures of the Aztecs and the Mayans. So there's a lot here you haven't read before I get into this bit. So it might seem a bit summary in some way, like summarizing in many ways things that you would have read previously. But it's a sneak peek. It is what it is, So here we go. The Incan Empire, known officially as the Realm of the Four Parts, was the largest in pre-Columbian America. Its administrative, political, and military hub was in Cusco. The Inca civilization emerged from the Peruvian highlands in the early 13th century. Portuguese explorer Alexo Garcia, and the first European to arrive at the Incan Empire in 1524. Subsequently, in 1532, the Spanish began their conquest, completing the subjugation of the last Inca state by 1572. The Inca religion evolved from the beliefs of the early Andean civilizations and was significantly influenced by the Tiwanaku culture, which predates the Incan Empire and was dominant in the Lake Titicaca region. The more modern Inca iterations of the religion centered on celebrating nature and was closely tied to the environment, the sun, the moon, and the earth. They also maintained a class system, as seen in the Machu Picchu hike and the Inca Citadel, which were reserved for the highest class of Incas. Material possessions and social status held significance in their culture. Most villages within the Incan Empire practiced a religion focused on their gods. Notable deities included Pachamama, meaning Mother Earth or the land, Viracocha, the creator of nature, and Inti, the sun god. They also worshipped multiple other gods associated with natural elements, such as water, rain, and wind. Capac Cocha was a sacred Inca ritual of human sacrifice performed during extraordinary events, such as natural disasters or the death of an emperor. The Incas thought that sacrificing pure individuals, such as children or prisoners of war, who had fewer ties to the material world, would enhance the ritual's power and appease the gods more effectively. The children of Lulelaco, there we go, are three well-preserved Inca mummies discovered in 1999 by John Reinhardt and his team near the summit of Lulelaco, a 6,793-meter-high stratovolcano on the Argentina-Chile border. These children were sacrificed during an Incan religious ceremony around 1500. During the ritual, they were drugged with coca and alcohol before being placed in a small chamber 1.5 meters underground. They were left to perish. Archaeologists regard them as some of the most well-preserved mummies in the world. This culture, which reached its peak around the same time as the northern continent's Aztec and Mayan cultures, maintained a similar polytheistic religion centered on sun and earth worship, with a particular penchant for human sacrifice. Most websites and authors' descriptions of this culture are rose-tinted at best, as they romanticize a culture that based its trading standards on reciprocity rather than money, and lived in balance with nature. You find they often forgive the murder of children as a sacred ritual of the highest honor for the brutally sacrificed. Concerning this book's subject matter, what can be said of the aesthetics of the gods these sacrifices were tailored for? We can find very telling imagery that made my eyebrows raise as soon as I stumbled across it in my research. While examining the original metal plates, sculptures, and carvings of the pantheons of the Inca, we find that the face of the sun god Inti, who is the son of Viracocha, the creator of the universe, bears a resemblance to the Gorgons of Greece, the Rakshasa of India, or even the Oni of Japan. So let's stop there and let's look into this so you guys can see what I'm looking at. So the sun god Inti, sun god. So this is the Incan sun god, the son of the creator of the universe. So this is like a Jesus parallel, I suppose. Obviously, I don't think this is Jesus, or I don't think Jesus stole from this either. I think this was Nephilim being birthed by false gods posing as creators. So the fallen angels, the watchers, creating their own hybrid offspring. And if you look at a representation of the sun god Inti, like on this plate, and I'm sure you guys can get a good view here, it's got this buck-toothed, wide-grinned, wide-eyed, circle-nosed visage to it radiating out from the sides. And if you actually look into this here, is like a more of a explanation for it. And there's many versions of this plate. It's even like engraved into stone in many ways. But what you're looking at here are actually very common motifs we see all over the earth when we see the Nephilim represented. This buck-toothed effect, this snarly toothed effect, shall we say, is actually very similar to, let's say, the Gorgons, as I explained there, of Greece. Let's look at the Gorgons of Greece. And these are what the more ancient plates actually look like, not the more modern iterations we see here. If you look at the ancient artworks of a Gorgon, she looks like this. And again, I think that is very similar to what we just saw there with Inti, the sun god. It's practically the same image, in fact. Now, that should send red flags immediately, because these are separated by vast oceans and thousands of miles, and they all have different stories for where they came from. The Gorgons, for example, were the offspring of Echidna, a human-woman serpent hybrid monster who had sex regularly with Typhon, the sea serpent god. Okay, as I mentioned earlier. Flying serpents, dragons mixing with human-women hybrids with snakes, creating many, many monsters, including the three sisters or the three Gorgons, which had this visage specifically. As you can see, wide grin, buck tooth, pale white skin, big red lips, tongue sticking out. Very usual depictions of the Gorgon here. And I think that is the sun god Inti. It's the same thing. If you don't believe me, we can also see the same visage in the Rakshas of India. Here's the Sri Lankan take on the Rakshas of India. They call them the Rakshas. The India call them the Rakshasas, but they are serpent-human hybrids. Notice the snakes protruding out of the head, the big wide red lip, the snarly tooth grin, the tongue sticking out, similar to the Gorgons in many ways. And these are the aesthetical similarities you see across wherever a human-serpent hybrid is appearing. And I think Inti, the sun god of the Incas, is just another one of these. So here's the one of these Sani demons, which has a story we'll get into in a bit. Again, same visage, same image, which I think we do need to be aware of these aesthetical similarities when discussing all these cultures. And these are the threads I kind of weave throughout my work, which gets to this point. So if we carry on reading there, what other examples did I give? Viracocha resembles the Gorgons of Greece, Rakshas, or even the Oni of Japan. Yeah, so again, the Japanese version of the Oni demons. They also have the same snarly tooth, wide-grinned visage going on, because we're talking about the same creatures here. Even if we go to the demons of Bali, the Balinese demons, they have Rangda the demon queen, or obviously this one as well, the Bali Barong, which is the dragon, which fights their own children, the offspring, the demon queen here, the hybrids between the dragons and humans. And we're seeing these aesthetic similarities across cultures because they all experienced and saw the exact same creatures. And all these creatures positioned themselves as gods over the people. So the people worshipped them as gods, and these usually answered to their dragon parents, the pantheons of gods, which took over the regions in the sky, you know. So it was all kind of lies upon lies upon lies upon lies that people of the time believed. But when you actually contextualize it through the biblical narrative, you realize we can't trust any of the actual stories coming out of these cultures about what they thought these entities were. Viracocha, the god creator of the universe, you know, creating his son Inti, the sun god, which looks like a Rakshasa of India, you know, because they weren't. That was just simply a fallen angel watcher and their child posing as gods over the region, and that's what I would say. And look, this is not like an attack specifically on the indigenous people of South America. This happens on every culture and every continent all over the earth. I don't discriminate when it comes to dismantling people's belief systems. You know, I think a huge lie took place in the past, and this is one of those lies that followed into the modern day. So often going on here, we often see wide eyes with glowing bright blue around the pupils, accompanied by a significant grimace with snarly bucked teeth and a patterned or multicolored face surrounded by a serpent-headed aura. These are quintessential Nephilim features and the very source of the original clown costume, created and modelled after this demonic imagery in 1799, as explained in Volume 1, Chapter 15. So again, if you don't know what I'm talking about there, I better show you. So if we go to the Thailand temple Rakshasa demons, you'll find these here on ordained over many of these temples, this specific iteration of a Rakshasa demon. So if you look at this image here, and then we look in a new tab at Joseph Grimaldi, the man who was dressed in the first clown costume as we know it today. And this clown costume was invented in 1799, and it was given to this actor, Joseph Grimaldi. And if you look at that or turn it upside down, they're even in the same position. That's where it was copied from. So it was modeled after the Rakshasas of India, specifically these Thailand temple ones, because the person who created it was a son of a Freemason called Charles Dibdin. and he was very well acquainted with Indian iconography. He travelled back and forth to India quite a lot, as discussed in his memoirs, and that's where we get the clown costume from, specifically. So that's what that reference was there, if you were wondering what I was saying in the book, but that's been fleshed out many times on my channel. Could it be that Viracocha was simply a fallen angel who had dominion over these particular peoples as a watcher, before taking a wife and birthing Inti, his Nephilim hybrid child, who bears all the markings of a human-serpent hybrid? The aesthetics of this offspring give weight to this theory. So let's look at Inti a little bit more, and let's look at Inti, sun god, different variations of this. So you also see this one as well, holding 2 snakes in his hand. This is quite a common one, and this is often associated with Viracocha as well. You get these golden plates, and I think they had a shape-shifting quality to them. I think sometimes they could look more human or more serpent-like in their visage. This is very Gorgon-esque, many snakes for hair, you know, that kind of idea. But I think they had electricity and an aura about them, a power about them, which was quite shocking and electrical in nature. And I think that's where the serpent for hair effect comes from. I think that's where we get that from. And yes, before anyone brings it up, I know all about Thunderbolt's project and the idea that these were just plasma phenomena seen in the sky that were interpreted or anthropomorphized into beings. I disagree with that theory wholeheartedly. I think these things were real, tangible, walking around entities that actually looked like this. And I'm not going to symbolically get rid of them just because of one theory out there, which I think is false. I think these things did look odd and scary and weird and psychedelic and interdimensional, and did have odd, strange auras about them when they were doing this. So I think there is a colorized version of the sun god there somewhere. I can't find it here. For example, you see Viracocha in the middle, but surrounding him are these examples of Inti the sun god holding electricity sparking out of his ears, which look like jester horns, which is quite interesting. Very odd. Very odd indeed. And here's a colorized version. So these things did have colorful patterns to them. They had very clownish features. Obviously with their own culturally specific aesthetical stylization. And you'll find across cultures the stylization varies a lot, but the common threads are there, such as the buck teeth, wide eyes, white pale face skin, synonymous with electricity or thunder in some way as well. And this is just the Incan flavour. So let's just keep going on here. And obviously sacrifices were often made to these gods as well as the god of the underworld, which we're going to get into now, which kind of fleshes out this culture a bit more. There are other, more obvious references to demons directly in the Inca pantheon, and that is the Supay. He plays a very similar role to the Aztec or Mayan underworld ruler. He was connected to the spirits of the dead and had a dual nature, being both protective and fearsome. The Inca regarded him as one of the most evil beings ever, who controlled many demons, and is a perfect analogue for the Christian devil. Indeed, with the arrival of the Spanish in the 16th century, this is precisely how this entity was described and portrayed. The chronicler and writer Garcilaso de la Vega, in the first part of the royal commentaries of the Incas, described the underworld known as Ucupacha as a place of pain and suffering. He also wrote that Ucupacha was the lowest earth where they said that the wicked were sent, and to describe it more clearly they give it another name, Supaipa Huasin. This word means house of the devil. The Inca themselves, however, didn't associate the realm as good or evil, but just as the lowest level of 3, in which the universal dimensions were layered and the spirits lived. Just like the Aztecs sacrificed to their underworld god, Mixlant Akut, I can never pronounce this, Mixlantecuhtli, I think that's how it's, Kuchtli, Mixlantecuhtli, there we go, Mixlantecuhtli, for good favour in death, so did the Incas to the Supay, holding rituals to honour Supay during funerals and other death-related ceremonies. Ancient Inca artwork does not directly depict the deity Supay, but instead reflects the cultural themes of the underworld through symbols such as serpents, jaguars, and skeletal motifs. Supe is often portrayed in later folk art and traditions, such as the Bolivian or Ecuadorian Diablada dance dance festivals, and Peruvian sacra folk dances, as a fearsome shape-shifting figure. The representations of these devils are extraordinarily vibrant and clown-like in their costumes. Rainbow-patterned outfits adorned in shimmering jewels and shiny chains are worn, with large and fearsome masks bearing the face of a colourfully wide-grinning and bulging-eyed beast. The Peruvian Cusco's sacra literally translates to mischievous in English. When one looks at the masks of... typo though. When one looks at the mask of the Diablada, they bear a striking resemblance to the Rakshasa masks of Sri Lanka, or the face of the Mahakola Senia demon of sickness, or the Balinese masks of Rangda, the demon queen. We'll examine these entities in more detail in later chapters. So let's look at these recent iterations that I was talking about there. And these are the Diablada masks of these festivals that happen in Bolivia and Ecuador. And if you look at these things, they are so psychedelic in nature, with the serpents on the head and everything. And multi-fractaled and multi-dimensioned you'll find as well if you look into these a bit more. They get really colourful and wild in many ways. They all come marching out in a line like this, and they've got this bulge-eyed, bug-eyed effects going on, as you can see here with the buck teeth and the wide, snarly smile. They got the dragons ordained all over the chest here as well. And the dragon is usually involved in the costume. These are human-dragon hybrids. This is what you're looking at, and these represent the demons of this culture, of this region. This is what they believe demons looked like. And this all goes back to that ancient Incan culture, kind of mixed and blended with Portuguese and Spanish influence. It's a very odd blend, and the European influence on these regions and the festivals and the concept of the demonic definitely influenced this, but with this very specific cultural interpretation of what a demon would look like. And as you can see, it's very similar to what we've already seen in these other cultures, like the Rakshasas of India. So this is the Sani demon that I mentioned earlier of disease. This is from Sri Lanka. And the story behind this is actually quite interesting, if we get it up here. It's believed that illnesses were brought on humans by demons, and these beliefs and rituals could have prehistoric roots. According to folklore, 18 demons who are depicted in the Sani Yakuma, so that's this image here, originated during the time of Buddha. The story goes that the king of Lishavis suspected his queen of committing adultery and had her killed. However, she gave birth when she was executed, and her child became the Kola Sania, who grew up feeding on his mother's corpse. The Kola Sania demon destroyed the city, seeking vengeance on his father, the king. He created 18 lumps of poison and charmed them, thereby turning them into demons who assisted him in his destruction of the city. They killed the king and continued to wreak havoc in the city, killing and eating thousands daily, until finally being tamed by the Buddha and agreed to stop harming humans. Anyway, this is what the thing looked like. This is the demon that came out of the pit after eating its mother and went around terrorizing and eating people with its horde of big bucktooth smiling demons following it everywhere, okay? And the story there is that the queen of a king was pregnant and the king didn't believe it was his. Now, after looking at this thing, I think he had a good reason to believe it probably wasn't his, right? Is it more likely that a Watcher-class angel serpent god had sex with a queen of a specific region in order to legitimately heir his own progeny, a Nephilim child, who would have a legitimate right to rule over a specific region through birthright of being a part of a monarchy? And you find a lot of that was going on in the ancient past. I've talked about this a lot, but even in the Greek pantheon mythology, Zeus quite commonly posed as a king to have sex with the king's wife while he was away on business, shape-shifting into the king himself to impregnate her and produce hybrid offspring, and I think they targeted kingships in order to birth legitimate blood right heirs to the region to take over. it was a takeover attempt. It was a coup, over God's creation. And all the God-appointed kings of this ancient antediluvian age were being usurped and replaced by these monsters instead. And yeah, it's more than likely she did not have sex with the king and bore his child, if this is what came out of her and ate her and went around eating people and was a giant. I think the king may have been correct in many ways. But this is what you find. This visage pops up, and it's very, very, very similar to what we just saw there with the Diablada. It's the same entity with the bulging eyes, a bit more pronounced. The eyes are more bulgy, but you often find the Sani demon does have this these two eyes at the side, these two bulges. Can you see these circles on the left and right there? And in a way, I feel like what you see here is a hearkening to that visage. It's a very common motif, actually, when it comes to Rakshasa masks. If we look at Rakshasa masks here, again, two circles by the side, as you can see. It is always present in most of the time. Here's another version. And again, these are continents apart, guys. This is the Indic regions. This is Sri Lanka. This is nowhere near South America. This is a completely different, disparate religion with a very similar visage, because they all encountered the same things and they all have their own specific regional ways of depicting them. And this is what their version was, as opposed to the Ecuadorian regions and the Peruvian regions and the Chilean regions. So as you can see, that these two circles by the side of the face, I think, is exactly what they're representing here in their versions. I think it's the same. I think it's just the stylized version of that particular visage. And if I can just zoom out here, maybe scroll down and see another version. There's lots of. They all take artistic license each year. There's troops that go around. He had his queen as well. The demon of the underworld had his own queen, which looked like this, which is quite typical. This is likely a siren, as explained in the Book of Enoch. You have women who slept with the angels became sirens. So these became the mothers of the Nephilim, and I think they were hybridized to birth monsters. They were genetically engineered and changed from human into something else. Hence, in the case of Echidna, which is half woman, half serpent, she had serpent legs. And I think she was hybridized in order to be able to birth many, many monsters, many Nephilim. And I think that was her role, her job. And here's another example. Let me look at these things. They're terrifying, but they have the similar motifs to the Rakshas. So you have these as well, Rakshasa masks of India. So we have Sri Lanka, go across to India. Similar visage, bulging eyes, buck tooth. You got the dragon masks. This is a very clown-like one I found, which is very unique. I thought it was interesting. But white skin, red motifs, just like clowns. Here's Rangda, the demon queen, similar visage. And you find the aesthetics cross-cultural. This is what you get. You get the same visage wherever you go, just with slight variations based on artistic skill, prevalent materials for that region, whatever they have, they'll use. And this is what you get. This is it. And this is what this Cyclops version here is very terrifying, isn't it? You got this as well, a classic Rakshasa mask, and this is where you get your clowns from. This is where they come from. This is what they're modeled after. This is where you get Joseph Grimaldi, as I mentioned earlier. This is where the costume for Hit This came from. The Thailand temples. This is the Rakshasas who guard the temple in Thailand. These tamed demons. That's where this comes from, and which is where the clown was inspired from, and their costume. It's the same entity, and they're all over the earth. The vision, the visage is everywhere, including, like I said, South America, as we just explored. These aesthetical similarities are a smoking gun, as far as I'm concerned, for a shared experience across all the earth in an ancient past with a very specific entity and their offspring. And their offspring looked like this. They looked terrifying. Absolutely. Men's hearts would fail them for fear to witness upon them. And is it any surprise they managed to subjugate the entire ancient world and God had to send a flood? You know what I mean? These things were giants and eating people as well. It's like somebody has taken my work here on Reddit. It's actually a Rakshasa. There you go. And this is from season 2, episode 2 of Supernatural. And they find out that this clown going around eating people from in a traveling circus is a Rakshasa demon of India, and this was made in like 2006 or something, way before my work. So they've been telling you in the media for ages what clowns are modeled after. It's not. It wasn't hidden. No one knew about it. Like no one mentioned it yet, and I've kind of pointed it out as an obvious fact. So if anyone ever tells you clowns, well, I dress like a clown because I don't mean to look like a demon. I just want to entertain people. It's kind of like, well, you have no idea what you're playing with. You're ignorant. I don't think your intention matters when it comes to this type of stuff. But yeah, there you go. So that's my diatribe. That's what I showed you there. That's the a taste of, like I said, the similarities across cultures and where we get the clown image from and the demons they're modeled after. And here's Rangda, the demon queen. She's a terrifying one from Bali. And I found it interesting. Another connection I just made is Rangda's always shown with this big long tongue. Can you see this thing sticking out here? Here's another example of a long tongue as well. And it has this jerky, layered thing going on, as you can see. And I saw a depiction of the exact same thing from Incan artwork. So if I go here to Inti the Sun God, if I just type in Incan gods artwork, I'm sure there was an example I saw where they had a similar motif going on, which I thought was really interesting. Can I find it now live? I lost it because I closed the tab and I lost the image. But it looked like it was a copy of something from a relief of some kind that showed this. Oh, where is it? I've lost it, haven't I? But it had the same tongue effect happening, which again shocked me a little bit. Was it under one of these? Perhaps under this one. No, I've lost it. Never mind. Anyway, here's another Incan metallurgy. So let's get into this just to round this off. They loved gold. The Incans had clearly an abundance of gold and worked with it a lot. And here's an example of one of the headdresses that were worn to represent Inti, the sun god again. And he is quintessentially Gorgon-esque Nephilim. It's ridiculous how much he looks like a Gorgon, in fact. Let me find a decent picture here. Incan golden artwork. I'm sure it'll come up. Here we go. So here's a good example of it. Zoom in right there. Look at that visage in the middle. That is that is a Gorgon. That is a Gorgon. Hands down, of Greece. It is the exact same creature. You cannot tell me that is not that. Okay, I don't know what to tell you. The earliest depictions of the Gorgons of Greece, the offspring of Typhon, the sea serpent, and Echidna, the siren, just as the Book of Enoch talked about. Seraphim angels mixing with human women who corrupted themselves, created these creatures that look just like this. This is what the Nephilim looked like, and this is what's right in the Incan culture as well. Okay, they were everywhere, across continents, across cultures, and you can tell through aesthetical similarities what these things look like. Here's one on a pottery relief as well. And people don't realize this about the Gorgons. They just imagine Medusa with snakes for hair. But the earliest depictions are nothing like that. They're this. It's a winged giant holding a horse there. Can you see? So these things weren't small. They were giants with massive, wide, grinning, serpent-like features, buck fangs, with wings, with human bodies. Not serpent bodies. Okay? Because they were human beings mixed with angelic serpents, hence the wings, okay, to show their angelic nature and the serpentine hybrid features. This is what the Nephilim looked like, and that's exactly what the Incas dealt with too, from the looks of it. So ignore what they told you they thought these creatures were. Pay attention to the aesthetical similarities across cultures, and a different story appears, is what I'm saying here. Okay? Every culture has their own lie they believe about what these things are. But that's what they are. They're lies. Okay, these things lied to thousands of cultures about who they were and what their intentions were. Okay, and many cultures believe it. If you look at this jester-looking thing, look at these headdresses they wore to represent the three gods. You have Inti, the sun god. You've got the moon goddess as well, and the imagery doesn't seem to want to come up anymore. There it is. Yeah, you got the moon goddess as well, which has a bat-like features, as you can see, with fangs. And then you've got this thing with dragons on each side. So it looks like jester horns from here, doesn't it, on the left? Can you see? But that's actually two dragon serpents coiled around the ears of the god itself. That's Viracocha, the dragon. Okay, that's Viracocha, the sun Inti, and the moon goddess on the right there. Yeah, these seem to me like just, it's quintessentially a Nephilim creation story. There's a good view of the dragons on the sides of the head of the god. Yeah, so dragons, gorgons, monsters, sun gods, whatever. It's all the same story all across continents. And that's my little presentation there, a little taste of what I do and what I've just been working on writing about recently. And there'll be much more to come. This is just the start of the book. I've got to go to Europe after South America, and that gets even wilder. That gets crazy over there, what's going on in Europe. So there we go, guys. A little presentation. I hope you enjoyed that. I've just gone to the hour mark. I'm back now. We're going to have a bit of a break. Before we do that, let me just find Connor's music so I have something to play. I need something to play, right? So give me a second. Let me just also put my headphones in so there's no feedback onto the speakers as well. So I'm just going to quickly go to subscriptions. The Cult of Con. Go check him out if you haven't already. Cult of Con. There he is. He's had a rebrand recently. He's changed his color scheming, which I thought was quite interesting. So if I go here and let's go down to where's his music? He's got music somewhere. Playlists, podcasts. He's got Bulge Khalifa, Sunday Service. He's got his album here. Quickly just turn that off before anything starts. And let's do straight. This song's called Strangers. I suppose while we're playing, I might as well do his music video as well. So we'll share the screen. This is where you'll find it. Call of Con, Strangers. I'm going to play this song for the break. Let me just make sure my headphones are plugged in so we don't get any feedback. There we go. So this is Strangers by Connor for the halftime show. And I'll be back in about 4.5 minutes to take a Q&A session as well. So bear with me, guys. And let's just line this up so you can actually watch the music video while we're at it. Yeah, I'll be back soon, guys. Just going to get a quick break, and we'll take it from there.
Surreal, but the truth will reveal that my wounds have been The way that I'm feeling is something surreal, but the truth will reveal that my wounds haven't healed. I can't go back. Nah, I won't go back. It's all that I know now. Strangers around me, the people surround me. They glad that they found me, but I feel I'm drowning. I can't go back. Nah, I won't go back. It's all that I know now. I can't let go. I won't let go. 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 Cause this is the road I chose. So what if I go alone? It's all I've ever known. Yeah. I can't let go. I won't let go. 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 Cause this is the road I chose. So what if I go alone? It's all I've ever known. Yeah.
And we're back. There we go. Is that a great song by Connor? I really enjoy that one. I hope you guys enjoyed it too. Yeah, go check out his channel, Cults of Con. I think he's just hit 2,000 subscribers, which is great. Good for you, man. I look forward to the live show where you, which is tonight, I think, to celebrate. So after this show, maybe wait around, and if you're up late, you can go check out his show as well. Because I'll be asleep by the time that guy does his live show. It's like 2 a.m. for me or something silly. Yeah, go check out his work if you haven't already. All right, guys. So I've just been reading some chat, trying to catch up, and one that stood out to me, which just made me laugh. Where is this? Let me just find it. Someone decided to leave a comment. First of all, a t-shirt idea from Anna Banana Republic. I got busy with the fallen angel, and all I got was this monster, this t-shirt, and turned into a siren. I thought that was genius, and I might steal it and put it on my merch store. No, I won't do that, but that's a good idea. That's a really good idea. Jezza Digester, who I think sent me an email at some point and pops in every now and then to make some clown-related comment, said, what is the jester? Is competition or a balance to the clown? He also said, look up zany. Yeah, well, you're going off the official narrative story history of where clowns come from the Commedia dell'arte. The zany stock characters were all comedic clown jesters in their own right. But jesters kind of evolved after the Middle Ages, all throughout, well, kind of Middle Ages, as kings kind of hired out-of-work actors out of Rome to be funny men for them, and it developed into a tradition. Really, jesters have very little to do with Nephilim until the later iterations, where the jester costume kind of took on more clownish forms, inspired by Harlequin, who was introduced in about the 1500s. As a stock character representation of the wild men of Europe. And then you find the jester costume turned into the more Venetian style, with the white visage mask with the horns and the bells at the end, and that type of thing started to mold after that. And that's where you find they got more clown-like Nephilim features after the fact. So there's the history of it. And I don't know what you're talking about as counters to the clown, other than, yes, the Harlequin and the clown were both servants of the rich man in the story of the pantomime, and they would often fight each other. Yeah, and there was a battle between the clown, who didn't care about his master, who was just out for himself and just wanted to drink beer and eat sausages. And then there was the Harlequin, quick-witted, fancy lad about town, who was trying to whisk away the daughter of the rich man, you know, and run off with her. Columbine, she was called. And the clown would have to chase after Harlequin and get her back because his master told him to, and it's that type of thing. But yeah, so in the official pantomime story, Harlequin, I suppose, was the foil to clown and vice versa. But that's just where the comedy of the show came from. The costume, the aesthetics, which is the only thing I'm really focused on and care about, is strictly demonic. And it is a representation of demons through and through. And it doesn't matter how swept up in the performance you are, it still represents a demon, aesthetically speaking. Okay, and that's kind of what I'm trying to say here about all these cultures. It doesn't matter how invested into the culture you are, it's demons, bro. And that's kind of the line I'm drawing. And someone did leave a comment which kind of summarizes what most people think about me, to be honest. Now, I can't see it here right now. Maybe I got it on my phone. I think I saved it somewhere. Yeah, pre-loved bargains and antique. He said, I don't like you, and your videos have lots of mistakes. I watch your some info is okay. And it's like, okay, calm down. You don't like me. Why are you watching my videos if you don't like me? But to be honest, I get it. I am the Marmite of the internet world. You either like me and think I'm a swell guy, or you hate me and I'm the devil. There's no in between. You love me or you hate me. It seems like you fall into the I just don't like you category, which I get that a lot. I really do. All I'll say is suck it up. Turn it off if you don't like it. There we go. Right, so let's go back to the bottom here. Diamond pattern. Yes, Harlequin. Now, Harlequin doesn't mean diamond pattern. It's become synonymous with the diamond pattern since his leotard took on that form. Harlequin is Arlecchino in Italian, and it has its roots in Helikins from the French tradition of the wild man, but also it's kind of could be considered the hurricane or the hairy cane as well, because they were hairy wild beast men, and it said that Cain bore the mark of hairiness. That's what some people relate it to as well. And it kind of blended into Harlequin as history melded along. And then obviously Harlequin came synonymous with the patterned leotard with the diamonds. But originally, Harlequin didn't look anything like that. And I can show you, actually. I can show you what Harlequin used to look like. If I bring up my old... I've got an old folder here full of images, which I use every now and then to kind of prove my point. If I got... Clowns Live it's under, and let me just share the screen with you guys so you can kind of see what I'm looking at, and I'll find some images to share with you so you can kind of get the gist. Screen, there we go. So this is my folder full of many images I've gathered over the years, and let me just scroll down to where we get to our Harlequin section so I can give you a good example. Here's the progression of the Rakshasa to Clown pipeline. As you can see, that's where they got it from. Then let's go back here. What have I got? I've got something coming up. Some references to clowns in movies I've made every now and then. They always like to popularize the clown. As you can see here, this is a recent one. Sweet Tooth there. Clowns and the costume used in the music industry for the same reason of channeling purposes. We've got sacred clowning up there. We've got North American. Here's the Wanginas of Australia. Pack of clowns right there. These are the offspring of the rainbow serpents. They're very clown-like in nature. What else have we got? Here's some more golden work of the Incas, god of death. Again, I think that's the underworld god. I've got some Joker references there. I think I'm getting closer to like... Yeah, here we go. So Harlequin kind of originally looks something like this. Kind of, and this is representing the wild man of Europe, the demonic beast of Europe. He was quite rough with the upturned demonic mask on, and there is a development of this character, but he was supposed to represent this thing, the hairy beast, wild man of Europe, which you kind of see the diamond hair pattern here coming through. But really, these things were psychedelic and colourful in nature. Many modern cookery traditions dress like this today to represent the wild man of Europe, because I think they were very colourful. I think they're very clown-like in their visage. And that's where Harlequin comes in. He was supposed to represent that. But if you look at the historical progression of Harlequin, and I do have a picture here that literally lays it all out somewhere. I'm sure it'll turn up any minute now when I need it. Let's see. Yes, here we go. So he started off like you see here on the left. Patchwork, rough and tumble. Turns into more of a put-together patchwork, kind of. Still the same beast mask. And then as the years went on, it got tighter. and more uniformed. Then he became the fancy lad about town you see here on the right eventually, which we know of today. But his original form was more beast-like, more brutal with his club. And that's how it developed out of the tradition. And there's serpent skin with the harlequin pattern, as you can see. And yeah, that's what he was based after. He was based after the wild man of Europe specifically. So there we go. And there's a look at, we were talking about the Sani demon earlier. Here's another cuter representation of that demonic monster that ate a lot of people. So there we go. Yeah, I've got a lot of stuff here that I've gathered over the years. Here's a representation of Rangda the Demon Queen looking very clownish. That was a good representation. I've got loads. I've gathered them many cultures over many years, of showing many different things. And I have I have 45 episodes now going through it all on my channel if you're interested. We even touch on DMT Jesters. We touch on the Royal Order of the Jesters. The most recent installation was about the Royal Order of the Jesters, the Freemasonic connection to all of this. If you're thinking about it, I guarantee I've likely covered it. I'm telling you that right now. You're talking to the guy who's been doing this for like 10 years. I have probably covered it. So yeah. Anyway, questions, get them in. Ask. Let's do this. Let's see what's going on. Starts drama only to leave 10 seconds later. Yeah, that happens all the time. I'm still on the fence, Paul, says Trish. Some people, I don't know. I must like, I don't know. I must have a punchable face. Some people just really hate me. They just really, really cannot stand to be around me. Maybe they're just narcissists and they just don't like the way I shine or something. I've heard that quite a lot, but I have no idea. Honestly, it's my entire life it's been the case. Like I've had people who have just harbored resentment towards me until one day they just explode and attack me physically, and I never see it coming. I'm like, whoa, I thought you were my friend. Why the hell did you just do that? You know, it happens a lot. I am the Marmite of the internet. You either love me or you hate me. I heard Marmite talk, says my wife. She jumped in as soon as I said that, yeah. Is the Dionysian cult also associated with the Wild Man? Says, my thoughts are flowers strewn, deep name. Yes, they are actually. It's highly linked to the Dionysus cult. So, especially Harlequin as well. So you find Harlequin, as I showed you earlier, and I'll get the pictures back up while I'm doing this. You know, just if I can find anything while I'm talking about it, it might come in handy. But yeah, Dionysus obviously has his staff, which is the thyrsus, which has a pine cone on the end of it. And if I can just get this up, I'm sure maybe I have images somewhere if I'm lucky to get to quite quickly. But I think it's here. Yeah, I think... No, can't find it. But yeah, Dionysus does have his staff. It might be easier, actually, if I just kind of type this as we go. So, Dionysus. And yeah, he's often depicted as the god of debauchery, wine, patron saint of theatre, partying. He roved from village to village with his band of satyrs and maenads, having a constant party, and people would come under his spell in his presence and would join his band of merrymakers, who were wild men in their own right, who would form to bestial forms, and any man in his presence would eventually turn into a faun, or a satyr of some kind, which is like a sex-obsessed wild beast man. And yeah, so he had powers, you know, and he's basically quintessentially a fallen angel god of some kind that really just went around corrupting everywhere he went, you know. And yeah, the wild man has been associated with him heavily, but even Dionysus was considered a foreign god from Thracian culture. Which is Romania today, I think, is where you'll find that, primarily in Bulgaria and that kind of region of Eastern Europe, Southern Eastern Europe, Northern Mediterranean. And you'll find the Northern Mediterranean and Mediterranean influences of like Mercury as well. So Mercury was quick... Sorry, so that's no, what is it? Mercury God. Put God. He was quick-witted, fleet of foot, was very fast and energetic, and he had his caduceus staff, which is synonymous today with the medical industry, by the way. And you'll find that Harlequin, as I mentioned earlier, is basically Dionysus or Mercury. So let's just do Harlequino. to get more specific. So you'll find him here with his staff and everything, as he is quick-witted and fleet of foot and fast and live and energetic. He kind of is modelled after Mercury a little bit with his own staff, and Dionysus with his thyrsus. And for good measure, you know, like I said, the wild beast men roaming around with Dionysus is another wild man example. And you'll find the wild man tradition continues today in these regions, and they have been going on since the times of Dionysus followers, where they would become wild beast men and have a huge party of excess. And here they are, they're still dressed like this today, the wild man, and have these parties in these regions. And it's called the Kukuri of Bulgaria today. So Kukuri, Bulgaria. And this is what they go around dressed like in the modern tradition. If you guys can see this, there we go. And yeah, it's the wild man. But they're actually quite colourful if you look at them closely. Very psychedelic in nature. And they wear masks like this as well, as you can see. And yeah, all these wild hairy beast masks with the wide toothy grin. They kind of, and this is all goes back to Dionysus, Thracian Dionysus wild man cults. This is where it comes from. So the wild man tradition, which is still alive today, and you find this everywhere, all across the European continent, by the way. This is just in the region of where Dionysus comes from originally, before making its way into the Greek pantheon and the Roman pantheon, you know, as Bacchus in the Roman and Dionysus in the Greek. But this is what they were doing. This is what they were doing then, today. And this is kind of like remnants of that ancient tradition still going on today. They dress like the wild man and have a huge party in these wild, hairy suits. Yeah, so it's heavily linked to Dionysus cults. Heavily. And that's where the wild man tradition still goes today. Sometimes they go a bit more on the nose and demonic. Sometimes they hide it under a bunch of fur and do these weird dances in the sound suits, as they call them, you know, making a lot of noise to make themselves out to be ethereal beings of a sort. But they often have a club, you know, and it's the same culture. It's the same tradition of the wild man, but more of a Dionysius spin on it. And if you go all the way across to the other side of Europe, you have the Curetos of Portugal, and they have their own wild man tradition based on the same cults, which spread all throughout Europe. And this is how they do it. This is how they dress. Very clown-like. And again, I've got whole episodes dedicated to this, whole series dedicated to this, and they do the exact same thing, have a massive debaucherous party and then fast afterwards, just like they do for the Kukuri in Bulgaria from the Dionysus traditions. So yeah, all linked. Good question. Thanks for giving me a healthy reminder there, see if I knew what I was talking about. But yeah, the Dionysus cult is heavily associated with the wild man tradition, and that's where we get Harlequin from, and yeah, it's all connected, every last bit of it. Let's keep going there. Paul, love your work. Would you ever be willing to share your file of images? No, it's the mine. I would, but I don't know how, and I'm not going to find the time to do something like that, to be honest. But if you're interested, email me. I'll see what I can do. It's just a compilation of images I've gathered over the years on the internet, you know, to back up my little presentations here. I'll often do this. I'll often put a slideshow on. Here's the slideshow, and it just shows varying disparate cultures and how it's all pervasive into our own society today, and different connections that I've talked about over the years, the fashion industries, you know, and different things I've picked up. This is part of the South American section of the book I'm writing now, the Selknam tribes of the southern tips of Argentina, and going into Chile, and right at the bottom, the Tierra del Fuego islands. You have this culture, the Selknam, which are extinct now, actually, as a tribe. But this is how they dress to channel their spirits. That's AI, I think. But yeah, I've got a slideshow of all the images you see there that I'll often play when discussing clowns and various histories and stuff. And things often come up when I do this that often corroborate what I'm saying in real time. But usually it has nothing to do with what I'm mentioning in the moment. But yeah, I've talked about a lot of things over the years, and this is my little slideshow. Not relevant today, but if you're new to the theory, hopefully this taster has excited you about the idea. You can go to my channel. There's a playlist called The Nephilim Looked Like Clowns. Maybe this is a good time to show you guys how you can navigate there. I'll go to my YouTube home. And let's go to my channel. Stop the introduction video before it plays. There we go. Right, so if I go to my channel and share the screen with you, this is what you'll see. Something like this, yep. So if I scroll down, you should be able to see my other channel, Understanding Creativity. Go check that out. And right at the top, the Nephilim Looked Like Clowns, from episode 1 all the way down to episode 46. But if I go to playlists up here, this tab, you'll find I've got the Nephilim Look Like Clowns playlist somewhere here. There it is.
I want you to get together.
We'll just pause that. And as you can see, this goes down, and there are many episodes here. And the most recent one is episode 45 at the bottom, The Royal Order of the Jesters. That was released very recently. But you've got the adverts in there. You've got some interviews I've done on other podcasts breaking it down as well. You've got short clips and presentations. I talked with Gary Wayne as well. At one point, here's an interview with him. There's 2 interviews, actually, you can find on my channel with Gary Wayne. There's some extra content here. Typical... so some satirical stuff in there, some comedy stuff. I did the demon face syndrome phenomenon that happened not that long ago. I made a video about that. If you're interested, which kind of ties in with my work in many ways. And here's presentations I've done on other podcasts. Let me just look at the... I want to watch the demon face syndrome one. It's a serpent feature again. Why won't it do it? Why won't it do it? Let me just click that one. It's like this video doesn't want to play. So you guys remember this phenomena, and I do my usual spiel and explain where this comes from and why this is really happening, and I link it to my work naturally, and go through many things on this channel. So go check out the playlist if you haven't already. If you thought of it, I've probably covered it, is what I'm saying. There's hours of content there. What I am doing right now is I am... let's just... Nope, that's not right. Let's try that again. I've got the book on Amazon Kindle. You can get a copy, and if you go to the US website, all my video work has kind of been compiled into this book series here. You can get the audiobook, you can get a digital version, you can get hardcover, you can get paperback, you can get one from me directly if you want, signed if you send me an email. 181 reviews, a 4.7. It's got a 4.0 on Goodreads. They're very harsh critics on Goodreads, I'll say that much, but still 4's pretty good. I'm okay with that. And this is a lot of what I've discussed about the history of the Nephilim and where the clown costume comes into play is in the first book, and you've just got a taster of what I'm writing in the second book here right now, going through all the folk traditions and the cultures and showing the thread that connects them all and what the Nephilim really did look like and how that relates to clowns. And the second half of this book is going to be about modern day demonic manifestations of the clown. So clown murderers and perverts, coulrophobia, the multicolored collective, the film and TV industry, the music industry, all that kind of stuff is going to get covered in the second half of the second book. So there you go, guys. I think that's a good introductory example of what I do and what that body of work is all about. But that's just one section of what I do. Like, seriously, like if you go to my channel, I cover a lot of stuff, a ridiculous amount of things. Like it's broad, but that's just something I'm known for. That's one of the things I'm known for. I'm known for another thing about the Millennial Kingdom, and the little season theory, or the last season of Satan theory, and I've kind of fleshed that out for a year or two. But I also I have my own podcast, the Truth of Therapy Sessions. I'm very much known for kind of helping the community deal with learning the truth. I have a Tips for Truthers series as well. I cover a lot of things. I've cast a broad brush with what I do on Understanding Conspiracy, and it's done well over the years, I'd say, to kind of have that image. I mean, if you go to the screen here, the playlist you can see, I've got artwork, the Millennial Kingdom, all the live Q&A shows are on there. The Tips of Truthers series is there. All my podcasts and collaboration visits and interviews are all there in that one playlist as well. My Random Ruminations playlist is where you find my random musings and ramblings about anything and everything, my stream of consciousness thoughts. I've got my Truth of Therapy Sessions podcast format there, which you can find on all podcast formats if you want to do audio only. The Nephilim Clowns playlist, and a bit of an old Exposing the Occult playlist. I don't really contribute to that one anymore, to be honest. But yeah, then I also run another channel. If we go back to home here, called Understanding Creativity. And this is a new one. And this one we cover the occult in art. Guest artists come on. I just interviewed Hunter Tylo, an ex-star of The Bold and Beautiful soap opera, who's come out and is exposing what's really going on in that industry. And my own music's on there as well. I get guests coming on. I have a lecturer who comes on and gives the occult history of many artists throughout history here, kind of touching the big ones. We just did Picasso recently. That was a fascinating talk. But yeah, there's a lot here. Occult in art, and we did Klimt as well, and we did George O'Keeffe, and I'm talking to her this Sunday, and we're going to get into some MK Ultra behind the scenes stuff as well, which is quite interesting. So yeah, lots of things. You can find me and what I do, and hopefully for the newcomers there, the 2,000 people who joined recently, maybe that'll give you some insight to who I am, and maybe if any of that is intriguing to you, stick around, and more's to come throughout the years. I've been here long enough, and I'll be here for as long as YouTube will have me. Right. So anyway, guys, it's an hour and a half. Any questions? Anything anyone wants to ask? Get them in now. You've got me for a little bit. Yeah. Let me check the chat now. See, do you have any knowledge on Dia de los Muertos? And are there any symbolic figures of interest? Says Anna Banana Republic. Yes, I just wrote about that in the book. There's a whole chapter on it. Again, I have to share the screen and show you that I'm not just talking out my ass. I actually have done this. Day of the Dead, and I have a whole chapter here dedicated to that. And there is, basically, to summarize very quickly without reading it here, you'll find that it's kind of been synonymous with All Saints' Day in terms of Catholicism. It was highly Catholicized, but what you're actually representing here is the wife of the god of the underworld, Mictlantecuhtli. I can't really pronounce that very well. And the worship involved frightening human sacrifices and cannibalism. And yeah, she was not a pretty sight to behold. She was quite a disturbing, terrifying, skinless skeleton goddess who ate people. And she was a goddess of sacrifice and disease as well. And this is where the Day of the Dead masks come from. It's a representation of this beast monster here. And that's all I'll say. Wait till the book comes out. You can read the whole chapter on it. Or maybe I'll give a sneak peek soon. But yeah, I have covered that one, that's for sure. What in the Nephilim? What in the Nephilim clown is this shit? I couldn't swear on a mug, but I do have merch that says "What in the Nephilim clowns is this?" and a T-shirt as well. By the way, I hate loving your content, says Cherry Car. Well, that's good to know. A love-hate relationship is always cool. Could you imagine having to run and hide from these things? I know, right? Terrifying concept. It's demons, bro. Carnivals, yeah, that's right. The eating of meat is what carnival basically means. Hi, Paul, love your work. Would you ever be willing to share your file of images? I think I've gone too far back there, haven't I? The Filipino traditions are fascinating. Tabi Tabi Po is taught to the children that when they pee under a tree to respect the spirits who reside there. Yeah, the Filipino monsters are terrifying. I've looked into them. Yeah, well, I'm going to be getting that into the book. They have some really terrifying mythos, and yeah, they really do. The Philippines is a scary place for demons. You know what else is a scary place for demons and the representations? The northern regions of America and the Inuit cultures and the way they depict their demons, absolutely mortifyingly terrifying. And the Inuits, they're not okay. They are not okay. The things that come out of their imaginations when it comes to demons are very telling. They're not okay. Okay, I've learned that much, and I talk about it in the first part of the second book, to be honest, and explain it all. It's dark. And it's dark and cold and miserable up there, and survival's brutal, so it's hardly surprising that they've been so disturbing with their representations of the spirits they encounter. It's really disturbing and cold and visceral and like nightmare-inducing stuff. I'll say that. Is Mercury, Hermes, and Thoth? Well, yeah, that's up for debate. Probably. Hermes, Trismegistus, and the rest of it, and thrice Hermes and Thoth and all of them, the Emerald Tablets and all that nonsense. But I think a lot of it's been proven a little bit false as well recently, and there's a lot of fraud behind the Emerald Tablets of Thoth and their discovery. Maybe. I couldn't say for certain. I've discussed it with Gary Wayne in my interviews with him. If you want to go talk about that, we get quite deep into it. I have an episode on Hermes as well, Hermes Trismegistus. But again, who can truly answer that question thoroughly and know for certain? It's one of those. They saw some shit, says Mark. The Eskimos have seen some stuff. I'll show you just quickly now. Inuit demon mask. It's really just like harrowing stuff. Let me just show you the screen. Like their version is like, what have you seen? Like, what happened to you? Like, seriously, like how sad they are. Like, and look at this thing holding a child. Look at that. Look at the teeth. Look at the big hands. Yeah, the Inuit. The Inuit are not okay. Like they've seen some stuff, man. It's rough. Whatever's going on for them, they've had it rough, like really rough. And clearly the resources they had to depict these things were minimal, so they did the best they could with what they had. It gets creepy. Like the more you get into this, the weirder it starts to get. To be honest, this is just some of it. Like yeah. Some of the things I showed and some of the collections I found, it gets way weirder than this. This is just a cursory quick search, but you can find people's collections, and it makes you wonder what the hell these people were seeing exactly. A very special flavor of Nephilim creature was up north. That's all I can say. And it gets so weird, so very, very weird. Anyway, let's cut that back. Didn't you believe the thunderbirds of North America were possibly fallen angels? What about the plumed serpent Quetzalcoatl? Well, it's hard to say. I think angels are shapeshifters, to be honest. And the feathered serpents and the thunderbirds can be a bird-serpent hybrid, angelic hybrids. And I think predominantly the serpentine nature overtook the bird nature. But I think the thunderbirds and those that are connected to controlling the weather were angels whose job in that region was to control the weather. They had dominion over the weather of that region. And I think that's how God divvied up the jobs to his angels. It's kind of like, your job is to make this region of the earth, that lake, function as the lake it needs to function, or to make that forest function as that forest needs to function. So you get these gods of the forest, or gods of the sea, or gods of the lake, and because they had a consciousness within them. There was a spirit behind that lake, and that was the angel that was appointed that thing. I think some of the thunderbirds were angels appointed controlling certain regions of weather over the earth, and I think they displayed their power and became gods to the people underneath who were like, what the hell's happening? What is that thing? Like, it suddenly reveals itself and then it says, I'm a god, worship me. And they're like, yes, all right, don't kill me. I think that's more likely what was going on. And then there's loads of stories of like the thunderbirds mating with women and having children, all sorts of crap happening, Then at the same time, you have Quetzalcoatl, the plumed fed serpent god, who did the same thing, but who had a human form and a serpent form. Yeah, two forms. And I think they could shapeshift. I think they could have more human-like visages, as well as feathered, winged, monstrous lightning images and serpent snake images and all sorts of things. I think they were crazy looking. I really do. And there's something to be said for the idea that maybe some Nephilim had their features were bird-human hybrids. I think there could be said for that. I think some of the angels were bird-like rather than serpent-like. Maybe a different class of angel to the seraphim. Maybe some of them did mate with human women and create hybrids. Possible. Very, very possible. I'm not saying that's not the case. And birds can be extremely colourful. Like, look at a macaw, look at a parrot, for example. So maybe who's to say? The stories do line up with that. The mythologies do line up with that, to be honest, when you look into it. All the art on the series Frasier is that. Even the stuff hung on the fridge door is 30-year-old and full of special numbers. Yeah, I used to watch Frasier a lot. I really enjoyed watching Frasier as a kid. I haven't watched it since, to be honest. But I used to watch a lot of it. All lowercase g gods of old are just Nephilim. I don't think the storm god from Norse is necessarily the same storm god of Rome. It's just a common tactic this race does. Oh yeah, no, I don't think the pantheon of the Norse gods is the same pantheon that was in the Greek region, or the same pantheon that was in the Indic regions, or the same pantheons that were in African regions. There's many gods in Africa because it's a huge continent with many countries and disparate cultures, And then I think they were all just, of the 200 Watcher class angels, they just divided themselves up into groups of gods and just did the same thing everywhere all over the earth. Became the pantheons everywhere, but they weren't the same group of gods repeated everywhere. They were different gods, just playing the similar roles in different places. And they were all a part of that rebellion, I believe. I think so. Yeah. But to call a fallen angel a Nephilim is not the same thing. They're not the same thing. People really need to understand the difference. I think a lot of people are really confused about what a Nephilim is, and they are not the angels themselves. They are the offspring of angels mixed with humans, specifically. There is no other definition of a Nephilim other than that. I will make that clear. I've been to Dallas House, a museum in Barcelona. Serious nuts when I look back. Yeah, museums are full of these masks and things. I saw a few recently in the Edinburgh Museum. They have a big collection of these Inuit masks and many of the cultures of that region as well. And you get across to the Guahanas regions, or the Queen Charlotte Islands now, and you get the totem poles, which have similar visages. Ernie, one of our regulars here, sent me this in the post because I think he lives in the region. And there's lots of stuff on here about that and their cultures, but the totem poles are a fascinating one for sure. Again, all things I've covered in the series if you're interested in checking it out. Dinosaurs in charge with tiny mammals in hiding. yeah, the whole dinosaur dragon synonymous narrative is questionable. And there's this funny meme I saw ages ago, and it's like, it shows a picture of a dragon from the medieval period. I think I can find it for you. Dragon medieval. Yeah, it's this one. It just makes me laugh. I just think it's funny. Let me just show you this. This one always cracks me up. So in the Middle Ages, this is how they depicted dragons, and it's like, oh, this is nonsense. And then suddenly they develop what a dinosaur looked like, and now they're feathered bird reptiles, just like they depicted in medieval times. So I think dragons, like these hybrid dragon creatures, I think were around in medieval times. I do. And I don't think every dragon was a fallen angel necessarily. I think the fallen angels made creatures in their image. And this is where you get the dinosaur phenomena or the dragon phenomena coming in, where they're more like birds, reptile birds. You know what I mean? I think that's where those creatures came from. I think they were abominable creations of the corruption factor of the angels, and obviously they were wiped out. We killed them all. For good reason. They were never supposed to be there. And maybe there's something to be said for the millennial reign of Christ, where you have these knights going around slaying dragons during this chivalrous time on horseback with spears. Saint George being an example, going around killing the serpents and the dragons. Maybe there was a whole 1,000-year period where dragon hunting was sport, and it was condoned and recommended because it was a scourge that needed to be removed from the earth, perhaps. Who knows? But this made me laugh. There's another medieval dragon, with an elephant. The elephant doesn't look too happy, does he? I don't know if that's AI or not, to be honest. Who knows? But yeah, that meme always cracked me up. We've come full circle, guys. Feathered reptilian chicken monsters. That's what they really were. The term dinosaur, fearsome lizard, is now obsolete. I can't say that much. This one goes hard on the phone to a user's call center person or reception of a business. They don't know what they're doing. Just say how many blanks and wait for the uncomfortable pause. Okay, Jezza the Jester. I've worked in a call center. I get it. It's rough. Do you believe the Watchers had sex with all creatures, not just humans? No, I don't think so. I don't think there's really any precedence for that. I think the Nephilim offspring started having sex with creatures. I think that started to happen. I think so. They defiled every creature on Earth, and I think humans. I think a lot of the hybrid creatures were created in more of a clinical lab setting than it was just through sex. It seems like there was a technology happening in the pre-flood world that we just don't understand. I think Wakanda style. I think they were genetically engineering monsters in labs. I feel like more likely that's what was going on. And then post-flood, after all that infrastructure was just destroyed, creatures were all over the place, just running amok. That barely just survived the flood, you know what I mean? By living underground or swimming above the flood in the air and living in the sea because they were like half human, half fish hybrids now, things like that. Like they just barely made it to the other side, and then monsters just roamed the land suddenly. But I think when they were originally made, they were made technically, not just through brute force sexual encounters. I think that's more likely, to be honest. From my research, I could be wrong, but I do know there was some writings about the Nephilim having sex with animals and all sorts of things as well. But did they birth offspring as a result? I don't know if that's ever been. I don't know. Maybe someone let me know if that's the case. Maybe I'm missing something or I've forgotten something here. Different natures. I'm losing track of the chat, guys. I don't know what you guys are talking about. You're rambling like madmen, which is typical of conspiracy theorists, isn't it? I figure that's how we got mosquitoes and ticks, says Just Dave. Yeah, it's possible a lot of animals we have today weren't supposed to be here originally. Like, what the hell is an octopus? Have you seen what those things are capable of? What about have you seen how crazy a lobster can get? And why are we told not to eat shellfish specifically? I mean, I know they're bottom feeders and everything, and there's something said to be being unclean animals, but it just seems so randomly arbitrary, doesn't it? That God would just randomly say, "Oh yeah, and don't eat crab." While you're at it, maybe there's more of a reason for this specifically. Maybe a lot of creatures that we have today are not supposed to be here, and they're just left over, especially from the sea. The sea's probably full of them, saltwater animals, because there was no sea or salt water before the flood. So maybe the creatures that are survived to the modern age in the ocean, these are hybrids. Maybe they're crazy, and it's maybe many of the fish were supposed to be there, but maybe some of these like monstrous looking creatures like spider crabs and the insects of the sea, perhaps they weren't supposed to be there. Maybe they are the hybrid chimeras, and that's a wild speculative theory, by the way. Do not quote me on that as fact or truth in any way, shape, or form. I'm just spitballing here. But I've kind of talked about this in the past. I've talked about Nimrod as well, and shellfish are weird, man. When you actually get into it, like they are creepy things, creepy creatures. Yeah, fleas and ticks are demonic. Cuttlefish are crazy too. Yeah, water bugs. Yeah, but look, I'm not hating on them necessarily. They didn't do anything wrong, I suppose. They're just doing what they do, and they serve a purpose. They keep the oceans clean as well. So I'm not saying what I'm saying is true in any. I understand in terms of ecologically that they are useful. I do know that. I'm not complete and totally retarded. All right, don't start quoting me as though I'm saying ridiculous things just for no reason. I'm just speculating here off rough ideas. All right. Not my bad, not Inca, Inuit, says Julian. Did I miss something there, Julian? I'm not sure what you said. I might have missed that. Fish bulb, not heard of that one. How about the mermaids? Yeah, the mermaids were likely human fish hybrids from the mixing of kinds that happened before the flood. There's something to be said for them being sirens. Maybe, but I think the old school sirens, the original sirens, the ones I researched, were hybridized into snake women. That seems to be what actually is. So the Nagas of India are a great example of a real siren. They have the serpent body, but the top half of a woman. And I think those are the sirens specifically. Now, mermaids seem to be women who have mixed themselves with fish. And I think if a flood comes, that's actually incredibly handy, isn't it? It's really handy skill to have gills and to be able to swim like a fish and survive in the ocean. Perfect for a flood scenario. So I think that's where mermaids specifically come from. How about very bottom of the ocean fish, downright evil looking, unsettling on a genetic level? Oh yeah. Anglerfish are truly horrific creatures. If you ever seen an anglerfish before. What am I on, guys? I'm on 1 hour 52 here, so I think I've rambled on for quite a while. Do you believe the hybrid marine kingdom creatures still exist today in our physical realm? It's possible that there actually is, a real marine kingdom, like a real thing. It's not just a spiritual concept. But I think it's half and half. I think there are spiritual creatures and then physical creatures still around when it comes to the hybridized bunch. Cryptid sightings are why cryptid sightings happen, because they're physical, they're real. But I think there's a spiritual element as well. I think the disembodied mermaids are also around and probably chill around the marine kingdom too in their spirit forms. And who knows what ability some of these physical creatures have to perceive the spirit realm and communicate with the spirits. I don't know. They might have capacities way beyond our normal perceptions. I mean, I've theorized before that our perception to see the spirit realm was limited post-flood when the rainbow appeared. And the rainbow was given as a covenant by God to know that he'll never flood the earth ever again, And I think it said that the next judgment comes by fire, not by water. But that covenant, that rainbow appearing, there's something you said that maybe water wasn't around until this point, so rainbows didn't exist until water appeared, and the prism fractal effect happened in the sky, when the light hit the right moment. Some people argue the rainbow appeared when the firmament was placed over or something. I've heard that idea, but I think there's something to be said for rainbows appeared when our visual spectrum was limited to a very narrow bandwidth, which is the rainbow, those colors, And outside of that, there's much more to be perceived that we just don't have the tuning capacity to perceive anymore. Our tuning capabilities were dialed back down to just a narrow bandwidth of color, the rainbow. And I think that was done as a mercy by God after the flood, so we wouldn't be able to communicate with the demon spirits that are now everywhere because of the flood that wiped them out. Do you get what I'm saying? So it was to protect humanity from the demons, which were now disembodied spirits everywhere, the Nephilim, and these hybridized creatures, which were now disembodied spirits as well. Many of them were killed. So humanity doesn't commune with them and get corrupted again so easily. A veil was put up. The rainbow was created, and that's our limit. That's all we can perceive now. But who's to say that these cryptid creatures can't see more? And they can't perceive more and can talk to their dead brothers and sisters just as much as like anyone else, like they're right next to them. Who truly knows? If our full perceptions were opened up and we could see the spirit realm simultaneously with the physical realm, we'd be communing with demons on a daily basis, and they'd be walking around like people, just like us, and we'd probably perceive them and see them in many ways. But probably in a very psychedelic, crazy looking manner, don't get me wrong, but I think it would be a completely different world if our perceptions weren't limited. So when we have, open up the doors of perception, man, and take this DMT, what are you actually playing with there is dangerous. There's nothing inherently wrong with the spirit dimension that you perceive. It's not evil. It's a perfectly natural part of creation that was there from the beginning. It's just infested with demons. So going there is actually, and perceiving that place is actually incredibly dangerous now. Who knows what will find you first and start talking to you and what it'll tell you, and depending on how naive you are, who knows what you'll believe. There's all sorts of nonsense going on in the New Age groups today, which shows that they believed what they were told by the thing that came to them when they did their DMT trip. Oh, it was a fifth dimensional light being that is trying to help me ascend my consciousness to the fifth dimension with them. Or was it a Nephilim, that spirit that just lied to you when you saw it because you didn't know what to do or what it was or had any context, and you were just naive and stupid and ignorant of the situation you had placed yourself into? more likely you were played, son, by a demon. Like, more likely, based on all the history I've researched, you know. A super hyper fifth dimensional god chose you, did they, to impart all their wisdoms to and ascend to the next level because you're so special. Right. Okay. Yeah, I'll believe that when I see it. But that's what I mean. And these things lie all the time about what they are. Ascended masters, time travelers from the future, aliens from another star system, or interdimensionals from another reality or from another dimension. You know, they have a convenient lie for whatever the person they see will believe. But realistically, it's more like what I just said, and I would say that because that's what I believe. So yeah, I'm biased. Sue me. Paul, about the flood. Someone asked earlier about the bloodline came through the flood. Well, there's a lot to unpack there, which I don't have the time to do because I've got 2.5 minutes left before I hit the 2 hours. What I will say is I do cover the flood extensively in my book. I cover all the possibilities. There's many possibilities. There's like 5 to 6 different versions of how the corruption made it post-flood too. Again, I always leave them wanting more. I'll leave that one there. I'll leave that hanging. Okay, but there are answers. There are lots of answers for that. Maybe I'll cover it in a completely different episode. I probably have, if you go on my channel and type in the flood, I probably have covered that extensively in a video somewhere. So go find that. I just don't have time to thoroughly answer that one right now. Okay, I can't do that because we're at the end of the show. And it's been a good one. It's been a long one. I've talked your ears off. I hope you enjoyed it. For all the new people joining, I hope you enjoy what I do. And again, lots more content coming. And I cover many topics, not just the Nephilim clown thing, as you know, the music industry and the rest of it. But fundamentally, this is about spiritual warfare. What I want to try and give people are the tools necessary to defend themselves when you do inevitably encounter the demonic. And you will. Everybody will. There is not one person who is alive today who has not encountered the demonic. They might not know that that's what happened to them. They might have suppressed it. They might not want to talk about it because they're scared of what people think of them. But I think every single human being alive brushes up against evil at some point and sadly don't know how to deal with or cope with what they've found themselves into, and often maybe feel alone with the situation. What I would say is, and how we should always end this conversation, is that if you just call in the name of Jesus Christ, in his authority, those things will flee. And it's through no power of your own that you manage to do that. It's just the power of his name and the authority given to us through him as children of God, made in his image, lovingly and fearfully made. Through his son, Jesus Christ, we've been given a way to defend ourselves. And you have the right to claim that authority over these serpents and tread on them. They are a defeated enemy. They only succeed through lies and manipulations, convincing you that you are weak and have no power or authority. When the truth is, you have all power and authority to cast these things out through the name of Jesus Christ, in his holy name. Use it. Use it. So if you're ever in that situation where you're being demonized or attacked by a demon in any way, shape, or form, sincerely, and I mean this with sincerity, you have to actually believe it and mean it, you know. You can't pull the wool over a demon's eyes or God's eyes, you know. But if you call in the name of Christ to help, he will help. If you stand up proud and say, in the name of Jesus Christ, you have no authority here. I break these binds you have over me or my life. I burn every contract you've ever made with me that I thought was legitimate, because you have no authority here. And just cast them out in his name, and they'll flee. They'll go. They won't even stick around to hear the rest of the spiel, to be honest. They run pretty quick. Like that, instant. I have my own testimony talking about this. That's why I believe. That's why I know. And I can't convince you of that, but I can certainly tell you my testimony and just give you that advice. If you're ever in that situation, you know what to do. Call in the name of Jesus Christ. Trust me, it works. Just do it. What have you got to lose? You have nothing to lose. So there we go. Right. There we go, guys. That's the end of the show. Thanks for listening. One quick random announcement. I do have one book left, a paperback, for a signed copy. So email me at understandingconspiracy@gmail.com if you want to claim this last book of this batch for a signed copy of the Nephilim Looked Like Clowns. Understandingconspiracy@gmail.com, and you can get that for yourself, and I can send it out with this batch immediately. and I'll personalize it to you. I'll sign it to you. And with this batch, final deal, if you're in America or the UK, I'll throw in a code for a free audiobook as well if you buy this copy. So there we go, guys. Final offer. I'm going to leave it there. I'll be back on Sunday with a Truth or Therapy session. I'll probably release a quick video on Friday, maybe add to the Tips for Truthers series or something if I have time, or maybe a clip from one of these shows. But I'll be doing another live show on Sunday for the Truth or Therapy sessions. Hopefully get some more calling guests as well, and we'll keep that going. Thanks for listening. And as always, God bless.
When ordinary people think of autumn, they imagine shorter days, cozy fires, curling up with a great piece of literature, and basking in the warming scent of cinnamon with shades of burnt orange, which your other half has decided to spend the life savings on to decorate the home for only 2 months, just as God intended. Yet we must remember that this transition into the frosty abyss of winter creates the perfect conditions for the spread of the pathogen known as Halloween. This disease causes people to dress like demons and go door to door asking for free stuff. This public service announcement aims to give you the correct tool to help you deal with these contagious commie behaviors when they manifest in your local community. First, you'll want to arm yourself with multiple shots of the best-selling paperback on Amazon called The Nephilim Looked Like Clowns. With this PPE, you're fully equipped and well protected to handle what's to come next. Second, have a pumpkin spice latte and white girl autumn your time away in knitted cream shackets and pilgrim hats, because soon enough, Samhain begins. This is when the veil between the spirit realm and the physical world is at its thinnest, and possession, the main symptom of Halloween, is more commonly presented, causing this type of unironic cringe to start happening. Just look at him. This poor soul thinks he looks cool. And if you're not careful, this could be you. Together we can stop the spread of Halloween and flatten the curve. When you see fully grown adults playing dress-up and mirroring unspeakable horrors from beyond the void, remember your training and cure their vapid sense of self-identity by handing them one of our favorably reviewed treatments. Your country must develop herd immunity to seasonal cringe. So, spread the cure far and wide. Just like the cure, this disease does not discriminate by age. Emulating the infected, you will see children running around in bedsheets, knocking on doors, begging for sugary treats, and threatening to damage your well-earned property. Make sure to fill their novelty buckets with the one thing all children secretly want: a well-rounded and relatable education in biblical history. That'll stop the spread. The Nephilim Looked Like Clowns and the inevitable booster volumes are currently the only known cure to thinly veiled demon channeling holidays. This is your best defense against this pandemic of spooky proportions. All you have to do is trust the science. Which you know we did, because I'm showing you people wearing lab coats and looking serious. Get your copy on Amazon today, and be prepared for tomorrow. Side effects of reading The Nephilim Look Like Clowns include, but are not limited to, a feeling of existential crisis, a well-rounded knowledge of a Christian contrarian view on human history, a foundational understanding of spiritual warfare, and a healthy aversion to clowns.